You can find them on Twitter, you can find them on the gram. After listening to their podcast, you'll be sitting there like, damn, taking their teaching from one level to the next, reaching up to Canada and down to Mexico.
So the concept is, it's a grade 2 social studies unit, and the concept's about change over time. And one teacher suggested a museum project. And, museum projects have been, those are popular. A lot of people have done those things. And what I like to do is use edupermaculture to enhance that museum project. So basically, I added a lot of opportunities for empathy work, or not opportunities for empathy work, but give them a different perspective. So they visited a museum, which I remember doing as well. But they were trying their best to take on the role of a museum curator, because that's what was expected of them for their project, and an exhibit designer. So they used empathy. They tried to understand a couple of people. First, the curators. So they would look at this exhibit and try to think what was the exhibit curator trying to communicate? What message, what historical event, how did they do it, right? What emotions did they try to provoke? How did they make the exhibit interactive? So it's really cool because they're trying to gain that perspective of the curator, but at the same time, they're making observations themselves as the visitor. Like, how do they feel when they get there? And checking out, how do they present information? Oh, they do it really clear. They don't have too much writing. They focus the main points. They try to focus on that. So it's a lot of empathy, which I think is missing in a lot of these project-based PBL projects. And then also, like, for me as a teacher, I try to get in that perspective as well, in the curator's mindset, so that I can best design learning experiences, a sequence that simulates what they do. So I watched a lot of interviews, and I watched the Smithsonian interview by Adam Savage, and he just talks to a exhibit designer, and she just spews all this really cool knowledge of what she does and how she's thinking, and I try to have my students think that way as well.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just creating that real world context as best as possible, and you're a unit. To me, is a beautiful narrative. Bronin Olson said that to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel. A unit shouldn't be this just like a mix of learning activities aren't really connected, but maybe connected by a theme. It should be there should be a sequence. There should be it should just make sense. And every unit, if a videographer came to document your unit, it should be this epic, really cool story.
Oh, wow.
Right? And that's kind of how I try to design these learning experiences. Because I just remember constantly as a kid, and I kind of do it still now, where as a kid, we'll do this activity and then we'll stop and we'll do this activity. And we just do it because we're told to do it. There's no real sequencing and narrative. It doesn't really make sense. And we don't even know why we're doing it. But the performance task that we design gives them that why.
Thanks for listening to the Teacher Nerds podcast. Keep up with every new episode by subscribing on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor, or anywhere you listen. Remember to visit teachernerds.com, and that's nerds with a Z. Follow us on Twitter @TeacherNerds and on Instagram @TeacherNerdsPodcast. And thank you for being one of the Teacher Nerds.